But first, I want to go to the utter hypocrisy of the Albanese government's Environment Minister Tanya Plibersek. Now, you may remember back in February, Plibersek knocked back Clive Palmer's Central Queensland coal mine application. Now, she celebrated her decision, telling the media that if you want your kids and grandkids to be able to see koalas in the wild, we have to change what we're doing because in New South Wales, she said, we're on a trajectory to no koalas by 2050. And yet we find out now that same month, a review found Plibersek's department had 140 koala killing projects under consideration, 29 of them for renewables. For instance, late last year, Plibersek approved a wind turbine development at Lotus Creek in Central Queensland that requires the bulldozing of old growth forest, including 341 hectares of known koala habitat, an area well known by renowned natural photographer Steven Nowakowski, who joins me now. Steven, thank you for your time. This is such an important issue. Tell us about the Lotus Creek Wind Farm and why you're so concerned about it.
Yeah, well, the Lotus Creek site it's quite a remote area. It's halfway between Mackay and Rockhampton. And it's directly west of the coastal communities of St Lawrence. And it's a high elevation area, about 400 metres above sea level. You can see the imagery there. It's a place it's a wild landscape. It's quite a cool temperature because of its high elevation. And it's a place that's never been altered. It's a place where time has forgotten. It hasn't been cleared, it hasn't been modified, it hasn't been used for intensive agriculture, it hasn't been industrialised. So it's a place where wildlife has existed and continues to exist. And the diversity there is completely off the charts. It's the highest number of koalas I've ever seen anywhere in Australia. And the greater gliders there are just incredible. So, for example, I was there last week and counted 10 greater gliders within about 3 or 4 hectares and 3 koalas. 2 were female with females, mothers with cubs on their back. So it's a really special place. And in actual fact, it should be the Great Koala National Park of Queensland. Yes.
So what reaction do you have then? That a lot of this old growth forest, I mean, hundreds of hectares will be felled and wind turbines will go up. And these turbines, if they're lucky, as Siemens report from Germany says, they'll have a shelf life of about 15 years, but will degrade what you've just told us there so beautifully is incredibly special landscapes that have been there untouched for a millennia.
Yeah, well, that's right. So there's actually 89 of these projects in the pipeline in Queensland. And the Queensland Energy and Jobs Plan quite clearly say that to increase production to 10 gigawatt would need 600,000 hectares of land. But that would need to be doubled because of the low capacity factor of renewable energy. So looking at least 1.2 million hectares of land. The issue that we're having is that these wind farms need to go onto the high elevation ridges, the mountain tops, the rock pavement areas, the places that have escaped the clearing in past over the last many decades. So it's a place of refugia where wildlife has existed. And it's those areas that have been targeted by the wind industry. And in the absence of any planning by the state government and the absence of any environmental guidelines, so for example, the State Code 23 for wind farms in Queensland, it actually that wind farms are exempt from the Vegetation Management Act and the Nature Conservation Act. So these wind farm industries are going into these really remote wild places with no checks and balances, no compliance, no nothing. So like I said, Lotus Creek, the bulldozers will be there any day now to smash up that over 300 hectares of koala habitat and destroy what is worthy of a national park. You know, it has the integrity of a national park. So the hypocrisy of Plibersek, who last year said that she will see, her ambition is to see no species become extinct under her watch. is highly unlikely to occur if all of these wind and solar projects proceed.
Oh, look, it's horrific, Stephen, because we've got the issue of the offshore wind farms in Wales on the New South Wales coast. And we've got the eagle population, great concern down in Tasmania. It's even had Bob Brown out there fighting against wind farms. And as I said, you're a renowned international level wildlife photographer. I mean, you have seen some pretty spectacular places on Earth, and the idea that you can sit by, well, you're not, you're on the TV tonight, but people like you have been there, can't sit by and watch this decimated, I think should get all Australians fired up.
Yes.
I will stay on this issue. We'll put some questions to the Minister's office, but I really appreciate your time.
No worries. Well, thank you. Thanks for your time.
Steven Nowakowski there.